Hello friends and welcome to my YouTube channel LearnWise, where we are continuing our course on the Indian polity. It is entirely free course where I am going to provide each and every detail, each and every chapter of the Indian polity in a very crisp and concise manner, so that you can able to comprehend the important topics of the chapter very easily. So we have come up with the historical background of the Indian Constitution, where I have already covered two videos. In my first video, I have cleared the topic of the historical perspective of the historical background, where we have discussed about how the East India Company is started trading in India and they established themselves as a trader. In the second video, I have covered about the two important acts of the Regulating Act of 1773 and the Pitt's India Act of 1784, where we have seen how the East India Company, you know, started when they started growing their wealth, how the British government started regulating the affairs of the East India Company in India. Okay, so in series of those that some other acts were also passed, they are also very important. So in this video we are going to cover the Charter Act of 1813 and 1833. So the Charter Act of 1813 and 1833, they are significantly important because they changed the course of the Indian history. Okay, so moving on. So first we discussed about the Charter Act of 1813. The very first important point of the Charter Act of 1813 is that it ended the East India Company's monopoly, which they are having regarding their trade in the India. Okay, when the British government realized that the East India Company is amassing huge amount of wealth, okay, so they first what they have done, they started devolving the power of the East India Company. Okay, that we have already seen in the Regulating Act of 1773 and the Pitt's India Act of 1784. Okay, so by the Charter Act of 1813, they ended the monopoly of trade of the East India Company. Okay, and they also allowed the other European powers and other companies in Britain to start trading in the Asian region. Okay, but the important point is that the monopoly of the company of trade with China and trade in sea was intact. It remained as it is. The second point is new opportunities for Christian missionaries. So Christian missionaries, they were allowed to start preaching their religion in India. Okay, so it laid the groundwork for Christianity to take firm root in India. Okay, because during this time only the preaching of Christian religion in India started in a very large scale. Okay, so why the Britishers wanted to, start preaching Christianity religion in India? Because they know the fact that when they convert the Indians like them in some manner, it will be easier for them to govern the Indian people. So that is why they started preaching Christian religion in India. Next is focus on education. They also gave focus on education, and with the Charter Act of 1813, rupees 1 lakh was earmarked for spreading education in India. 1 lakh for 1 year. Okay, so why they also started focusing on giving education in India? Their main aim was not to educate Indians for their own benefit. Okay, that means they do not want Indians to be educated and start asking question to the Britishers that why you are ruling in our country, why don't you go back to your country. They are giving education in India in such a way where they can continue their rule in India with the support of the Indian staff, and they wanted the Indian staff to be educated in the manner and the way in which they wanted. So that is why they started giving focus on education also with the Charter Act of 1813, where they have earmarked rupees 1 lakh for spreading education in India. So this is also very important point. So all these three are very important regarding the Charter Act of 1813. Next point is that the act renewed the charter of the British India Company for another 20 years. So this point is also regarding the Charter Act of 1813, that they renewed the license of the company. They renewed the license of the company for another 20 years. Okay. So next we are going to discuss the another important Charter Act, that is the Charter Act of 1833. First point, very important, the Governor General of India. So we have seen that in the Regulating Act of 1773, the Governor General of Bengal was the Governor of Bengal was made the Governor General of Bengal. Why? Because they wanted to start a central administration in India where they deprived the power of the Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras and made them subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal. Okay. Now the Governor General of Bengal was called the Governor General of India. It is also very important that the Governor General of Bengal was now being called as the Governor General of India, and first such Governor General in India was Lord William Bentinck, very famous person. Okay. And who was the first Governor General of Bengal? I have already covered in my previous video where I have taught you about the Regulating Act of 1773. So if you have watched that video and if you know the answer, please do write your answer in the comment section. I want to check. Okay. So this is the first point, the Charter Act of 1833. It created the post of Governor General of India. Now the second point, it deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative powers. Obviously, because the Governor General of India was made the supreme authority on India, so that is why they have to deprive the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. They want to start a central administration in India, so they wanted the Governor General of India to legislate in India. So that is why the Governor General of India was given the exclusive legislative power for the entire British India. So the first point is that the act made the Governor General of Bombay as the Governor General of India. The second point is the governors of Bombay and Madras were deprived of their legislative powers. Very easy. Third point is under British Crown rule, the act also declared India as British colony directly under the rule of British Crown rather than under the control of East India Company. So this is very important point, that they regarded India as the territory of not the East India Company but the territory of the British Crown. Okay. So this is also very important, that they don't want company to think like that they have conquered most of the places in India, so they are the rulers of India. No, they conquered the place India for the British Crown. Okay. So the Charter Act of 1833 made very clear to the East India Company that you are not the original rulers, you are on deputation of the British Crown. Okay. So this is the third point. Fourth point is open competition for selection of civil servants. So they wanted to run the country, that is why they wanted the civil servants. Okay. So they wanted the civil servants. So the Act of 1833 provided for a open competition for the selection of civil servants, and they also allowed Indians to give the examination and become the civil servants. However, it is not easy for the Indians to become the civil servant during that time. But the provision which was given in the year 1833 by the Charter Act for the open competition for the selection of civil servant, this provision was negated by the Court of Directors. So who are the Court of Directors? Court of Directors are the highest decision making body of the East India Company. So I have already discussed in my previous video where I have discussed about the Pitt's India Act of 1784, where I have told that the power of the East India Company was divided by providing a board of control. Board of control is a 6-member committee which is responsible for looking after the political and military affairs in India, whereas the Court of Directors they are being given the authority over the commercial activity, to maintain the commercial and administrative activity in India. So that body, that is the court of director of the East India Company, they said कि भैया open competition of for the selection of civil servants will not be done for now. Okay. So these are the four important points of the Charter Act of 1833, where we have discussed that the act provided for the Governor General of India. It deprived the Governor of Bombay and Madras of their legislative power. Now British Crown proclaimed that we are the rulers of India, not the East India Company. And the fourth point is that it provided for the open competition for selection of civil servants. However, this provision was negated. So in conclusion, what was the impact on India of these acts? The Charter Act brought about far-reaching impact. It changed the Indian history. How come? Because they allowed the Christian missionaries to start preach in India. So the cultural and religious development started taking place in our country. Okay. Next, they also provided for giving education for spending some amount of money for education in India. So okay, although they are doing it for their own benefit, but somehow it also improved us also. Okay. And it marked the period of transition in India. So okay, it moved India from a pre-colonial rule to British colonialism. We are going to enter in the era of British colonial rule. So this is all which I wanted to discuss about the Charter Act of 1813 and the Charter Act of 1833. So I hope this information will be of some help of you, and if it helped, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day ahead. Thank you.